The massive space station hung in the void like a crystal flower made of metal and light. Ambassador Hyunwoo Kim pressed his face against the small window of the human shuttle and stared at the structure that would decide humanity's future. The Galactic Council Station was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, its surface covered with docking bays, sensor arrays, and weapons that could destroy entire fleets. "First time seeing something like this?" asked Dr. So-Young Park from the seat beside him. She was the head of Earth's Science Division and the smartest person Hyunwoo had ever met. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore the same basic blue uniform that all the human delegates wore. "Yes," Hyunwoo admitted. "Makes our ships look like toys." So, Young smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. Sometimes toys are more useful than you think. The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Through the airlock came a being that looked like it was made of living glass. Its body was tall and thin, with crystalline features that caught the light and threw rainbows across the walls. This was a Velthari, one of the 3 major species that controlled the Galactic Council. "Welcome, humans," the alien said in perfect English, though its voice sounded like wind chimes in a breeze. "I am Guide Kethril. I will show you to the evaluation chamber." Hyunwoo and his team followed the alien through corridors that seemed to be carved from a single piece of white stone. The walls glowed with their own light, and the air smelled like ozone and flowers. Other aliens moved past them, some floating, like clouds of colored gas, others walking on metal legs that clicked against the floor. The evaluation chamber was enormous. In the center stood a raised platform where 3 figures waited. The first was another Velthari, but this one was larger and more complex, with geometric patterns flowing through its crystal body. The second was a Nethquan, a being of pure gas held together by energy fields, shifting between blue and green colors. The third was a Mektar, a creature that looked like someone had built a person out of metal and circuits, with glowing eyes and cables for hair. "I am Chief Evaluator Zilvak," said the large Velthari. "These are my colleagues, Kethmore of the Nethquan and Raxville of the Mektar. We are here to determine if your species is ready to join the galactic community." Hyunwoo stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Thank you for this opportunity. We have brought examples of our technology and culture for your review." "Yes," Zilvak said, and there was already doubt in its chiming voice. "We have examined your submissions." The 3 evaluators moved to a large table where human artifacts were displayed. There was a plasma rifle, one of humanity's most advanced weapons. Next to it sat a small fusion reactor, the power source for their ships. Models of human spacecraft were arranged in neat rows, along with samples of their computers, medical equipment, and manufacturing tools. Kethmore drifted over the plasma rifle like a cloud examining an interesting rock. "This is your most advanced weapon?" The gaseous being's voice sounded like wind through caves. "One of them, yes," So-Young replied. "It fires superheated plasma at near-light speeds." "Primitive," Kethmore declared. "We mastered energy weapons when your species was learning to make fire. This design is crude, inefficient. The plasma containment system is barbaric." Raxville picked up the fusion reactor with metal fingers. "Chemical propulsion for space travel, nuclear fusion for power. These technologies are thousands of years old by galactic standards. They work well for us," Hyunwoo said carefully. "Simple designs are often the most reliable." "Simple?" Zilvak's crystal body flashed with patterns that looked like laughter. "Is that what you call it? Your fastest ships take years to travel between stars. Our vessels cross the galaxy in days." "Your computers," Raxville continued, holding up a human data pad, "process information at speeds we achieved in our Bronze Age. Your manufacturing requires physical tools and raw materials. We learned to convert energy directly into matter millennia ago." So-Young stepped forward. "Our technology might seem basic to you, but it has served us well. We have explored our solar system, built colonies on multiple worlds, and developed sustainable fusion power." "Colonies in a single star system," Kethmore said dismissively. "We each control hundreds of systems. The Velthari alone have built structures that encompass entire stars." The evaluation continued for hours. Every piece of human technology was examined and found wanting. Their medical equipment was called crude biological manipulation. Their weapons were barely beyond throwing rocks. Their ships were flying coffins that insult the vacuum of space. But it was when they examined the human ship itself that the real contempt began. The delegation was taken to Docking Bay 7, where the human vessel Soul's Pride waited. It was a good ship by human standards, sleek, modern, with advanced fusion, engines and the best armor Earth could produce. Next to the alien vessels around it, it looked like a child's toy. "This is your diplomatic ship?" Zilvak asked, walking around the Soul's Pride like a doctor examining a diseased patient. "Yes," Hyunwoo said, trying to keep the pride out of his voice. "She's one of our newest designs. Nuclear fusion engines," Raxville observed, running scanners over the ship's hull. "Crude chemical thrusters for maneuvering. The armor is simple. Metal alloys. The weapons are kinetic projectile systems." "Projectile weapons." Kethmore seemed to find this particularly amusing. "You still shoot physical objects at your enemies?" "Kinetic weapons have certain advantages," So Young tried to explain. "They're reliable, hard to defend against, and don't require complex—" "They're primitive," Zilvak interrupted. "The kind of weapons a species uses when it doesn't understand real physics." An alarm chimed softly through the docking bay. "Ah," said Raxville. "The other council members are arriving for the final evaluation." More aliens entered the bay. Some were species Hyunwoo had never seen before. Beings of living light, creatures that looked like mobile plants, things that defied easy description. They all came to stare at the human ship with the same expression of bemused contempt. "Is this really the best they can do?" asked one of the plant-like beings in a voice like rustling leaves. "Apparently," replied a creature made of flowing metal. "Their entire civilization produces technology we discarded as obsolete before we left our home world." The crowd of aliens grew larger. They pointed at the Soul's Pride and made sounds that were probably laughter in their various languages. Some took pictures, as if the human ship was a curiosity in a museum. "Perhaps," suggested a being of pure energy, "we should preserve this as an example of early spaceflight. Future generations might find it amusing." Hyunwoo felt his face burning with embarrassment, but he kept his expression neutral. Beside him, So Young watched the aliens with careful eyes, saying nothing. Finally, Zilvak called for order. "We will now render our judgment on the human application for council membership." The three primary evaluators conferred in a series of chimes, whistles, and electronic pulses. When they finished, Zilvak spoke for all of them. "The species known as humans has demonstrated basic intelligence and the ability to reach beyond their home world. However, their technological development is severely limited. They show no understanding of advanced physics, energy manipulation, or faster-than-light travel. Their weapons and tools are primitive by galactic standards. Therefore," Kethmore continued, "we cannot grant them full membership in the Galactic Council. However, in recognition of their potential, we offer them colonial status." "Colonial status?" Hyunwoo asked. "You will be protected and guided by more advanced species," Raxville explained. "In time, perhaps in a few thousand years, you may develop sufficiently to be reconsidered for membership." The words hit Hyunwoo like a physical blow. Colonial status was what the galaxy gave to primitive species who needed babysitting. It meant humanity would have no voice in galactic affairs, no right to make their own decisions about trade or territory or war. They would be children in a universe of adults. "We understand," Hyunwoo said quietly. "We will need to discuss this with our government." "Of course," Zilvak said graciously. "Take all the time you need. Your primitive communication systems will make the discussion quite lengthy, I'm sure." More laughter from the assembled aliens. As the crowd began to disperse, one of the evaluators approached So Young. It was a small Mektar, different from Raxaville, with more delicate features and softer movements. "I am Engineer Nextall," it said. "I wanted to apologize for my colleague's harsh words. Your technology is interesting in its simplicity. Thank you, So Young replied. Tell me, Nextal continued, how long did it take your species to develop nuclear fusion? About 50 years from the basic theory to practical application. Remarkable, it took us nearly 300 years. Your species learns quickly, even if you lack advanced tools. So Young smiled. We've always been good at making do with what we have. Indeed. Perhaps that will serve you well in time. Nextal paused. I hope we will meet again when your species has progressed further. Later, as the human delegation prepared to leave the station, Hyunwoo found So Young standing alone in their quarters looking out at the stars. That went well, he said bitterly. Did it? So Young asked softly. They called us primitive children. Dr. Raxton of the Mektar Archaeological Institute had been digging in dead worlds for over 200 years. His metal hands had uncovered the ruins of 17 extinct civilizations, mapped the remains of ancient wars, and pieced together the stories of species that had vanished long before the current galactic order existed. But he had never found anything like what lay buried beneath the surface of Kepler 438c. The world itself was nothing special, a cold, airless rock orbiting a dying star in an unremarkable system. The Nethquan had claimed it decades ago, planning to strip mine its mineral resources. But the automated mining drones had detected artificial structures deep underground, and regulations required an archaeological survey before mining could begin. Raxton had expected to find the usual things: the remains of a primitive settlement, maybe some basic tools or simple buildings. Instead, his scanners had revealed something massive, a complex that stretched for kilometers underground, built with sophisticated engineering that rivaled anything in the current galaxy. Status report, came the voice of Commander Yethnal through his communication implant. The Velthari military officer was overseeing the excavation from orbit, more concerned with security than science. We've reached the outer structures, Raxton reported, his mechanical voice echoing in the excavation tunnel. Whoever built this knew what they were doing. The construction is remarkable. Any signs of the builders themselves? Not yet. But the architecture suggests a bipedal species roughly 2 meters tall. Similar body plan to humans, actually. There was a pause. Humans? The primitives who were just rejected from the council. Coincidence, I'm sure, Raxton said. But privately, he was beginning to wonder. The excavation team worked for 3 days to clear the main entrance. When they finally broke through, Raxton found himself standing in a corridor that could have been built yesterday. The walls were smooth metal, unmarked by time. Emergency lighting strips glowed softly along the floor. The air was stale but breathable. Preservation is extraordinary, he noted into his recorder. Whoever built this facility understood long-term construction. These materials should have degraded centuries ago. Dr. Kexfi, a Velthari scientist who specialized in ancient technologies, drifted beside him like a living chandelier. The power systems are still active, she observed, her crystal body resonating with harmonic tones. Primitive nuclear fusion, but incredibly well-maintained. The reactors have been running continuously for... Impossible. What's impossible? According to these readings, the reactors have been operating for over 700 years. But that's ridiculous. No civilization in our records possessed such technology that long ago. They moved deeper into the facility, following corridors that branched and split like the veins of some enormous organism. Side rooms contained equipment that looked familiar but wrong. Computers with recognizable interfaces but impossibly advanced components. Manufacturing bays with tools that seemed to bend physics. Storage areas filled with materials that their scanners couldn't identify. But it was when they reached the armory that everything changed. By the void, whispered Kexmar, a Nethquan weapons specialist. The gaseous being swirled around the room in obvious excitement. Look at these designs. The armory was vast, with weapons mounted on walls and displayed in protective cases. At first glance, they looked primitive. The same basic shapes as kinetic weapons and energy rifles that any spacefaring species might develop. But closer examination revealed sophistication that made current galactic military technology look like children's toys. Raxton picked up what appeared to be a simple rifle. It was heavier than he expected, made from materials his scanners couldn't properly analyze. The design was clean and efficient with no unnecessary decorations or complex interfaces. But when he activated his deep scan protocols, the weapon's true nature became apparent. "This is impossible," he said slowly. "What is it?" Commander Yethanol's voice crackled through the communication link. "This weapon, it's a plasma rifle. But the plasma containment system is beyond anything we've seen. The power source is some kind of microfusion cell that should be theoretically impossible to build. And the targeting system..." Raxton paused, running more detailed scans. "The targeting system can calculate firing solutions for targets moving at significant fractions of light speed." "That can't be right. Run the scans again." Raxton ran the scans 3 more times. The results were always the same. The weapon in his hands was at least 1,000 years ahead of anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. Dr. Kexfi had found something else. "These larger weapons," she said, her crystal body flashing with patterns of amazement. "I believe they're ship-mounted systems, but the power requirements..." She ran calculations through her internal processors. "These weapons could destroy moons." The team worked for hours, cataloging weapons that grew progressively more terrifying, kinetic systems that could accelerate projectiles to near-light speeds, energy weapons that seemed to tap directly into stellar cores for power, defensive systems that could generate shields capable of stopping planet-killing asteroids. But the most disturbing discovery came when they reached the command center. The room was built around a massive holographic display that showed star maps of the local galactic region. But these weren't current maps. The stellar positions were wrong, shifted by the movements of hundreds of years, and scattered across dozens of systems were symbols that Raxton's translation software couldn't identify. "Military positions," observed Commander Yethanol, who had finally come down to the facility in person. The Velthari officer's crystal body was sharp and angular, designed for command rather than beauty. This was some kind of sector headquarters, but for whom? The answer came when Dr. Kexfi activated one of the intact computer terminals. Text scrolled across the screen in multiple languages, some recognizable as ancient galactic tongues, others completely unknown. But at the bottom of every document was a symbol that made Raxton's metal heart skip a beat. It was the same symbol they had seen on human ships and equipment during the recent Council evaluation. "The logo of Earth's space program, Commander," Raxton said quietly. "I think we need to contact the Council immediately." "Why?" "Because I don't think the humans are as primitive as we thought." The dating results came back 6 hours later, transmitted from the most advanced archaeological laboratories in the galaxy. The facilities on Kepler 438c were not just old. They were ancient by galactic standards, 737 years old to be precise. Built during a period when, according to all current records, no species in this region of space possessed advanced technology. But the records were clearly wrong. Commander Yethanol paced the command center like a caged predator, her crystalline form casting sharp shadows in the ancient lighting. "This makes no sense. We have detailed historical records going back over 1,000 years. There's no mention of any advanced human civilization." "Perhaps our records are incomplete," suggested Dr. Kexfi. "Or perhaps," Raxton said slowly, "someone deliberately hid the truth." They had found more evidence in the deeper levels of the facility. Personal quarters that had been hastily abandoned, leaving behind clothing and personal items sized for human bodies. Manufacturing bays with tool markings in what appeared to be early forms of human languages, and most significantly, a memorial wall with names carved in stone. Thousands of names in scripts that included recognizable ancestors of modern Korean and English writing. But it was the final chamber that revealed the true scope of what they had discovered. The room was vast, with a ceiling that stretched up into darkness. Along the walls were massive screens showing tactical displays, resource allocations, and fleet positions. In the center stood a command throne surrounded by control interfaces. And above it all, carved into the wall in letters 3 meters tall, was an inscription that Raxton's translation software had no trouble reading. Human Colonial Defense Force, Kepler Sector Command, established 2387 CE. We guard the frontier. 2,387 Common Era, whispered Dr. Kexfi. That's 746 years ago. Commander Yethanol stared at the inscription. The humans had an interstellar military 7 centuries ago? Not just military, Raxton corrected, pointing to additional screens around the room. These displays show civilian populations, trade routes, industrial complexes. This wasn't just a military outpost. This was the command center for an entire human star empire. The implications were staggering. If humans had possessed this level of technology 7 centuries ago, what had happened to it? Where had it gone? And most importantly, why had humanity presented itself to the Galactic Council as a primitive, single-system species when they had clearly once been far more advanced? Dr. Kexmar, the Nethquan specialist, had been analyzing the tactical displays. These fleet positions, the gaseous being reported, they show human forces in over 200 star systems. The logistics alone suggest a population in the hundreds of billions, spread across multiple galactic sectors. Impossible, Commander Yethanol said. We would have records of such a civilization, would we? Raxton asked. How much do we really know about galactic history 700 years ago? Most of our current civilizations. Dr. Minho Lee had been quietly translating ancient trade documents for the Galactic Archaeological Council when the emergency message arrived. The small human linguist was working in his modest office on the council station, far from the important meetings and grand chambers where real decisions were made. He was, by all accounts, a minor academic whose only value was his ability to read dead human languages. The message was brief and came with the highest priority codes. Report immediately to Kepler 438c. Bring all human linguistic databases. Tell no one. Minho stared at the message for a long time. In his 3 years working for the council, he had never received anything with such high security clearance. Emergency transports didn't get dispatched for translation work. Something big was happening. The journey to Kepler 438c took 2 days, aboard a Velthari fast courier. Minho spent the time reviewing his linguistic databases and wondering why anyone would need a human language expert on a dead world in an empty system. The ship's crew was polite but clearly under orders not to discuss the mission. When they arrived at the excavation site, Minho understood why the secrecy was necessary. The archaeological camp was surrounded by military vessels from all 3 major council species. Velthari crystal ships hung like geometric flowers in space. Nethquan cloud vessels drifted like living storms. Mektar battleships, all angles and weapon ports, formed a defensive perimeter that could repel a fleet. Dr. Lee, greeted Commander Yethanol as Minho stepped off the transport. The Velthari officer's crystal body was sharp with tension, her harmonics strained with stress. Thank you for coming so quickly. What's this about? Minho asked. The message said you needed linguistic analysis, but this looks like a military operation. It may well become one, Yethanol replied grimly. Come. There are things you need to see. The descent to the excavation site took 15 minutes in a military shuttle. Through the windows, Minho could see the massive dig site, an area the size of a small city, with excavation equipment and temporary buildings scattered across the surface. At the center, a large entrance led down into darkness. How long has this been here? Minho asked. We're not sure, Dr. Raxton answered. The Mektar archaeologist met them at the entrance, his mechanical features expressing something like wonder. The construction techniques suggest incredible age, but the preservation is perfect. It's as if it was built yesterday. They descended into the facility, and with each level, Minho's amazement grew. The corridors were clearly designed for human-sized beings. The interfaces, while advanced beyond anything current humanity possessed, showed design philosophies that were unmistakably human in origin. But it was when they reached the main archive chamber that Minho's world completely changed. The room was filled with thousands of data storage units, each one containing terabytes of information in multiple human languages. scripts that Minho recognized as ancestral forms of Korean, English, Mandarin, Arabic, and dozens of others. But they were writing about things that should have been impossible. "Can you read this?" Dr. Raxton asked, pointing to a wall display, showing what appeared to be a technical manual. Minho stared at the text. The characters were archaic, but readable with effort. It's a maintenance manual for something called a stellar engineering platform. The instructions describe how to modify the fusion output of main sequence stars. Is that possible? According to this document, they built 17 of them. Minho's hands shook as he continued reading. They were using them to create custom solar systems for human colonies. Commander Yethnal's crystal body resonated with a sound like breaking glass. Custom solar systems? Minho moved to another display. This appears to be a fleet roster. Ships named Seoul's Thunder, Busan's Fire, Daegu's Might. Wait. He paused, checking his translation carefully. These aren't just ship names. These are fleet designations. Seoul's Thunder commanded the 3rd Colonial Fleet, 237 ships including 47 dreadnoughts. Dreadnoughts? Dr. Raxton's mechanical voice carried a note of disbelief. According to this, each dreadnought was 12 kilometers long and carried weapons that could... Minho stopped reading, his face pale. Weapons that could crack planets in half. The team worked for hours, with Minho translating document after document that revealed the scope of humanity's lost empire. Production reports from industrial worlds that built thousands of ships per year. Scientific journals describing experiments with space-time manipulation. Military dispatches coordinating the movements of fleets across dozens of galactic sectors. But the most disturbing discovery came when Minho found the personal logs. These are diary entries, he explained, pulling up files from what appeared to be a personal data storage unit. From someone named Captain Dayun Song of the Human Colonial Defense Force. He began reading aloud. Year 2387, Day 127. The expansion continues ahead of schedule. We've established orbital platforms around Kepler 442, and the first colonial ships should arrive within 6 months. The engineering corps has begun construction of the main defensive grid. Defensive grid? Commander Yethnal asked. Minho continued reading. The new grid will include 47 orbital fortresses, each one capable of sterilizing a planet's surface in under an hour. Command believes this level of protection is necessary, given what happened at Ross 128. What happened at Ross 128? Dr. Raxton demanded. Minho scrolled through more entries. According to these logs, Ross 128 was a human colony that disappeared. Not destroyed, not evacuated. It just vanished. 12 billion people gone without a trace. The only thing left was a message carved into the planet's surface in letters visible from orbit. What did it say? Minho was quiet for a moment, checking his translation multiple times. They are coming. Hide. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of ancient machinery. Commander Yethnal's crystal body had gone completely still, a sign of extreme stress in her species. Keep reading, she ordered. The logs continued, painting a picture of a human empire that had spread across the galaxy with unprecedented speed and efficiency. They had built orbital habitats around neutron stars to harvest energy. They had converted entire asteroid belts into automated manufacturing systems. They had created artificial worlds with custom-designed ecosystems. But running through all, the records was a growing sense of unease. References to deep space anomalies, reports of entire scout fleets going missing in unexplored regions, emergency protocols for something called incursion events. Then Minho found the final entries. Year 2389, Day 203, he read, his voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Park Min-jun has issued the evacuation order. All outer colonies are to be abandoned immediately. The Deep Space Monitoring Network has detected something that responds to advanced technology like an immune system responds to disease. What does that mean? Dr. Raxton asked. Minho continued. The entities, we still don't know what to call them, seem to be drawn to civilizations that advance too quickly, build too much, reach too far. They appear at the edges of explored space and begin hunting, not for resources or territory. They hunt advanced species specifically. Commander Yethanol's harmonics shifted to frequencies that indicated fear. How do they hunt? The logs describe scout fleets that encountered them. Ships would be found drifting empty, their crews gone but no signs of battle. Planets would be found with all signs of civilization simply erased, as if the population had never existed. But the strangest part is that they seem to learn from each encounter, becoming more efficient at hunting the next target. Minho found another file, this one marked with the highest security codes. This is a message from Earth Command to all colonial governors. The decision has been made to deliberately regress our technology, to make ourselves appear primitive so we won't attract their attention. That's impossible, Dr. Raxton protested. No species voluntarily gives up advanced technology. Humans did, Minho replied quietly. According to these records, they spent 2 years carefully destroying their outer colonies, erasing evidence of their presence, and retreating to Earth. They kept only minimal space travel capability, just enough to maintain the illusion of a young, expanding species. The implications were staggering. The humans who had appeared before the Galactic Council weren't primitive. They were hiding. Their crude technology wasn't the result of limited development. It was carefully designed to appear non-threatening to entities that hunted advanced civilizations. But the most terrifying part came in the final message, marked as a transmission, from Admiral Park Min-jun himself. If anyone finds this record, Minho translated, know that humanity made this choice not just for ourselves, but for the galaxy. The entities that hunt advanced civilizations are still out there. They sleep in the dark between galaxies, but they wake when they sense too much progress, too much expansion, too much ambition. We have chosen to become the galaxy's guardians by appearing to be its weaklings. Our ships are built to look primitive while carrying hidden capabilities. Our weapons appear crude while incorporating technology centuries ahead of current galactic standards. Our colonies look small and scattered while maintaining communication networks that span the galaxy. Minho paused, his hands trembling. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called within hours of the discovery on Kepler 438c. The great chamber buzzed with tension as representatives from dozens of species took their seats. But all eyes were focused on the central platform where Ambassador Hyun-woo Kim stood, no longer the humble supplicant who had been mocked months earlier. Chief Evaluator Zilvak's crystal body resonated with frequencies of confusion and growing alarm. Ambassador Kim, we demand an explanation. The archaeological evidence suggests that your species has been deliberately concealing your true technological capabilities. Hyun-woo looked around the chamber at the same aliens who had laughed at humanity's primitive ships. His expression was calm, but there was something different in his eyes, a weight that hadn't been there during their first meeting. You're right, he said simply. We have been hiding the truth. The chamber erupted in angry harmonics, electronic pulses, and gaseous swirls of outrage. Hyun-woo waited patiently for the noise to die down before continuing. 746 years ago, humanity possessed technology that made your current civilizations look primitive. We built ships that could cross the galaxy in days. We created weapons that could destroy stars. We engineered worlds from raw materials and built structures that encompassed entire solar systems. Impossible, declared Kethmore, the Nethquan, representative swirling in agitated patterns. We would have records of such a civilization. Would you? Asked a new voice from the chamber's entrance. Every being in the room turned to see a woman in a crisp military uniform walking toward the A platform. Her bearing was unmistakably military, her movements precise and confident. This was Captain Da-Yoon Song, and unlike the other human delegates, she carried herself like someone who had commanded fleets. I am Captain Da-Yoon Song, Earth Defense, Force Historical Division, she announced. I'm here to provide context for what you've discovered. She activated a holographic projector, filling the chamber with star maps that showed the galaxy as it had been 7 centuries ago. Scattered across dozens of sectors were symbols marking human colonies, fleets, and installations. In 2387 Common Era, humanity controlled 237 star systems. Daun began. Our population exceeded 400 billion, people spread across multiple galactic sectors. We possessed faster-than-light travel, matter conversion technology, and weapons capable of sterilizing entire worlds. The hologram shifted, showing ship designs that dwarfed anything the current galactic civilizations had built. Vessels kilometers long, bristling with weapons and defenses that looked impossibly advanced even by current standards. "These are your ancestors' ships?" asked Commander Yethnal, her crystal form sharp with disbelief. "These are ships we still possess," Dayan corrected calmly. "Hidden, waiting, but fully operational." The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't lost advanced technology, they had deliberately hidden it. Raxville, the Mektar evaluator who had dismissed human computers as primitive, processed this information through his electronic mind. "If you possessed such technology, why did you present crude ships and basic weapons to the Council?" Dayun's expression grew serious. "Because we learned that some technologies should never be used. Some capabilities should never be revealed. Some wars should never be fought." The hologram changed again, showing deep space sensor readings from 7 centuries ago. Strange signatures appeared at the edges of explored space, things that didn't match any known physics. In 2388, our deep space monitoring stations detected anomalous readings from beyond the galactic rim. Daun continued. Scout fleets sent to investigate began disappearing. Not destroyed, they simply vanished, leaving no trace except automated distress calls that spoke of entities that existed outside normal spacetime. Dr. Min Ho Lee stepped forward from where he had been observing. "I've translated the original records. The entities appeared to be drawn to advanced civilizations like predators drawn to movement. The more advanced a species became, the more likely they were to attract attention." "What kind of attention?" demanded Zilvak. Dayun's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "The kind that erases entire species from existence. Not through war or conquest, but through something far worse. They don't kill civilizations. They make it so they never existed." The hologram showed the final reports from humanity's outer colonies. Worlds found empty, but undamaged. Ships discovered drifting with no crews, but no signs of battle. And always, the same message carved into planets or transmitted on emergency frequencies. "They are coming, hide." Faced with this threat, Daun continued, humanity made a choice that no species in galactic history has ever made. We chose to voluntarily regress our technology. We abandoned our colonies, destroyed our advanced installations, and retreated to Earth. "But why?" asked Nextal, the small Mektar engineer who had been kind to Dr. So-Young during the original evaluation. "Why not fight? Why not warn other species?" "Because fighting would have made things worse," Daun replied. "These entities don't just hunt individual civilizations. They hunt technological advancement itself. The more we fought, the more advanced we became, the stronger they grew." She activated another display, showing Earth's solar system as it appeared to current galactic sensors. A single inhabited world with basic fusion power and primitive spacecraft. But then the display shifted, revealing hidden installations throughout the system. "This is what Earth actually looks like," Dayun said. The chamber gasped. The solar system was filled with massive structures hidden by advanced stealth technology. Orbital platforms around every planet and major moon. Asteroid belts converted into automated shipyards. Deep space installations that monitored the entire galactic region. "We never abandoned our technology," Dayun explained. "We just learned to hide it. Our ships appear primitive because we built them to look that way, while incorporating technology centuries ahead of your current capabilities. Our weapons seem crude because we designed them to be effective without appearing threatening." Chief R. Evaluator Zilvak's crystal body pulsed with patterns of realization and horror. "The plasma rifle we examined, it wasn't primitive at all." "No," confirmed Dr. So-Young Park, stepping forward to join the presentation. "It was designed to appear basic while actually representing 700 years of technological advancement, beyond what we showed you. Every component was deliberately simplified in appearance while maximizing effectiveness. But the power readings, protested Raxville. Our sensors showed basic fusion systems. Our sensors showed what we wanted them to show, So Young replied. The actual power source was a zero-point energy tap, but we masked the signature to appear as conventional fusion. The aliens in the chamber began to understand the scope of humanity's deception. For 7 centuries, they had been watching what they thought was a primitive species slowly developing spaceflight. In reality, they had been watching the galaxy's most advanced civilization deliberately appearing weak. Your ships, Commander, Yethnal said slowly. The ones we laughed at could destroy this station without sustaining damage, Dayun confirmed matter-of-factly. The Soul's Pride, the ship you mocked for its crude design, carries weapons that could sterilize the surface of any world in this system in under an hour. Then why? Demanded Kethmore. Why allow us to humiliate you? Why accept colonial status? When you could have demanded leadership of the Council? Hyunwoo finally spoke again. Because we hoped you would never need to know the truth. We hoped that by staying hidden, by appearing weak, we could protect the galaxy from the same fate that nearly destroyed us. But our deep space exploration, said Zilvak, understanding beginning to dawn, our expansion to the galactic rim sectors has attracted attention, Da-Un confirmed grimly. The same entities that drove humanity into hiding 7 centuries, ago are stirring again. Our monitoring stations have detected the same anomalous signatures that preceded their last awakening. The chamber filled with the alien equivalents of fear, crystal bodies resonating with discordant harmonics, gaseous forms contracting into tight spirals, mechanical beings running stress diagnostics on their systems. What does this mean for us? Asked Nextal. It means, said a new voice, that humanity's long watch may be coming to an end. Everyone turned to see Admiral Ji-Hoon Choi materializing as a hologram in the center of the chamber. His image was crystal clear, transmitted from wherever he actually was. Admiral, Hyunwoo acknowledged with a slight bow. Ambassador. Captain, Song Dr. Park. Ji-Hoon's gaze swept the chamber. Honored representatives of the Galactic Council. I am Admiral Ji-Hoon Choi, Commanding Officer of the Earth Defense Force. I'm here to discuss what happens next. What happens next? Zilvak demanded. You've been lying to us for centuries. We've been protecting you, Ji-Hoon corrected calmly. For 700 years, humanity has stood guard against threats that exist beyond your understanding. We've monitored the deep spaces between galaxies, maintained early warning systems that span half the known universe, and prepared for the day when those ancient enemies would wake up again. The hologram shifted to show real-time sensor data from the edges of the galaxy. Strange readings, distortions in space-time that matched no known natural phenomena. That day, the revelation of humanity's true nature sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Within days of Admiral Ji-Hoon Choi's address to the Galactic Council, every major civilization began emergency meetings to discuss what this meant for the future of galactic civilization. On the council station, Chief Evaluator Zilvak stood in her private chambers, her crystal body resonating with frequencies of deep uncertainty. Through her window she could see the human ship Soul's Pride docked at the same berth where she had once mocked its primitive design. Now, knowing what that ship really was, she felt something her species rarely experienced. Fear. The door chimed, and Commander Yethnal entered without waiting for permission. The military officer's angular crystal form was sharp with stress. The Deep Space Sensor Network has detected more anomalies, Yethnal reported. Whatever the humans were warning us about, it's getting closer. How much closer? 18 systems along the galactic rim have gone dark in the past 72 hours. Not destroyed, just dark. No communications, no energy signatures, no signs of life. As if they were simply switched off. Zilvak's harmonics shifted to frequencies of growing alarm. 18 systems represented billions of lives across multiple species. They couldn't just vanish. Have we confirmed this with human sources? That's the problem, Yethnal replied. We don't have human sources anymore. Ever since the Admiral's speech, they've stopped responding to our communications. It's like they've gone into some kind of emergency protocol. This was true. Across human space, ancient systems were activating after centuries of dormancy. Hidden, facilities buried deep in asteroids were powering up. Sealed vaults containing weapons that violated several laws of physics were being opened. And in the deepest bunkers on Earth, people who had spent their entire lives preparing for this day were finally being called to duty. Dr. Tai Min-yoon had been a xenobiologist at Seoul National University just 3 days ago. Today, he stood in a briefing room deep beneath the Korean peninsula, wearing the uniform of Earth's Deep Defense Division, an organization that officially didn't exist. The entity signatures matched the historical patterns exactly, reported Colonel Sung-min Park, indicating readings on a holographic display. They're following the same approach vectors, using the same dimensional manipulation techniques, even targeting the same types of civilizations. What types? Asked Dr. Taemin, though he suspected he already knew. Advanced industrial civilizations with extensive space travel and high-energy signatures. Exactly like the current Galactic Council, species. Around the briefing room, other specialists were arriving. Linguists who spoke languages that had never been used outside of emergency scenarios. Engineers who understood technologies that had been classified for 7 centuries. And soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war that most of the galaxy didn't know was possible. Doctor, Colonel Park continued, you've been selected to serve as our primary liaison with the Galactic Council. Your job is to explain to them what they're facing and what they need to do to survive, which is whatever we tell them to do, exactly when we tell them to do it without question or debate. Meanwhile, on worlds across the galaxy, the signs were becoming impossible to ignore. The Velthari homeworld's deep space observatories detected gravitational anomalies that shouldn't exist. Nethquan sensor networks registered energy patterns that followed no known physics. Mektar analytical systems reported data that their most advanced computers couldn't process. But it was when the first refugee ships arrived that the true scope of the crisis became clear. The vessel that limped into Velthari space was barely recognizable as a ship. Its hull showed signs of damage that seemed to bend the laws of physics, sections that were simultaneously present and absent, materials that existed in multiple states at once. The crew, what remained of them, spoke of entire worlds that had been edited out of reality. They came without warning, reported Captain Vexthol, one of only 3 survivors from the outer rim colony of Threshold Station. Our sensors detected nothing until they were already there. Not ships, I don't know what to call them. Structures that existed in more dimensions than we can perceive. What did they do? Asked the Velthari interrogator. They looked at us. That's the only way I can describe it. They examined our civilization like scientists studying bacteria. Then they began to change things. Change how? Captain Vexthol's crystal body flickered with traumatic harmonics. First, they made our most advanced technologies stop working. Not damaged, just stopped being possible. Our faster-than-light drives became ordinary engines. Our energy weapons became simple heating elements. Our quantum computers became basic calculators. Then what? Then they began erasing us. Not killing, erasing. People would be there one moment and simply never have existed the next. Buildings would fade from reality, taking with them all memory that they had ever been built. Entire cities became empty spaces where nothing had ever been constructed. The interrogator's pattern shifted to deep concern. How did you escape? We didn't. They let us go. I think they wanted us to warn others. To spread fear. They enjoy the terror of advanced civilizations realizing how helpless they are. Similar reports were coming from across the galaxy. Refugee ships carrying impossible stories of entities that consumed technological advancement itself. Survivors who spoke of weapons that could unmake reality, and enemies that existed outside normal space-time. The Galactic Council called another emergency session, but this time, the humans didn't wait for an invitation. Dr. Taimin Yun materialized in the center of the council chamber without using any visible transportation technology. One moment the platform was empty. The next he was standing there as if he had always been present. His simple appearance, a middle-aged Korean man in a basic military uniform, seemed almost insulting given the gravity of the situation. "Honored representatives," he began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber without technological amplification. "I am Dr. Tae-min Yoon of Earth's Deep Defense Division. I'm here to discuss your survival." Chief Evaluator Zilvax, crystal body flashed with patterns of irritation. "Dr. Yoon, we are dealing with a galactic crisis. 18 star systems have gone dark, and we're receiving reports of entities that seem to violate the basic laws of physics. This is not the time for human theatrics." "You're right," Taemin agreed calmly. "This is the time for you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because your species' continued existence depends on understanding it completely." He gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic displays showing real-time sensor data from across the galaxy. The readings were far more detailed and comprehensive than anything the Council's own systems could produce. "The entities you're facing are called entropy shepherds, though that's a rough translation of a concept that doesn't exist in your languages. They are not from our dimension, our galaxy, or our universe. They exist in the spaces between realities, and they perceive advanced civilizations the way your immune systems perceive viruses." "That's impossible," protested Kethmore. "Nothing can exist outside normal spacetime." "Your understanding of physics is limited by your need to exist within normal spacetime," Taemin replied. "These entities are not so constrained. They move through dimensions you cannot perceive, manipulate forces you have no names for, and wage war using weapons that don't technically exist." The displays shifted, showing the progression of the attacks on rim worlds. Each system showed the same pattern: advanced technology failing first, then the gradual erasure of anything too sophisticated for the entity's comfort. "They're not trying to conquer you or steal your resources," Taemin continued. "They're trying to prevent you from advancing to a level that might threaten their existence. To them, every faster-than-light ship, every energy weapon, every quantum computer is a step toward becoming something that could challenge their control over reality itself." Commander Yethanol's crystal form resonated with frequencies of desperate hope. "If humanity has faced them before, then there must be a way to fight them." "There is," Taemin confirmed. "But not the way you think. You cannot defeat the entropy shepherds with superior technology, because they will simply make that technology stop working. You cannot outrun them with faster ships, because they exist outside the concept of speed. You cannot hide from them, because they perceive civilizations across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Then how? By becoming something they don't recognize as a threat until it's too late to stop you." The chamber fell silent. Taemin gestured again, and the displays showed human space as it truly was, not the single system with primitive technology that the galaxy had observed, but a vast network of hidden installations, sleeping fleets, and weapons that operated on principles the Council species had never imagined. 700 years ago, humanity learned that the only way to fight entities that consume advanced civilizations is to appear primitive while secretly developing technologies they cannot perceive or counter. We built weapons that exist in quantum, superposition, simultaneously advanced and primitive depending on how they're observed. We created ships that register as simple chemical rockets, while actually operating on principles that bypass normal physics entirely.